Hey, welcome back, everybody. Hopefully, we're having a wonderful middle of the week out there. And we do have a pretty potent storm system currently working through portions of the lower 48, and there will be more after this. Obviously, this storm is a big deal, and we are going to discuss it in depth. But after it, we are looking at significant lake effect snow, followed by a return to a kind of stormier, snowier pattern for some folks. And I've got my eyes on a period right before Christmas time, right around the 20th of December. So, a little less than 10 days now for the potential of a storm system that could bring big time snow. Now, it's well out there in a time, so we will definitely talk about it, but we're not going to go super in depth on all of the details. I'm not going to be able to tell you who's going to get snow and how much snow you're going to get, but we are going to break down what we know about it right now and who could potentially maybe have a higher chance of a white Christmas because of it. Now, with that said, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so. Like the video, comment, let me know where you're watching from, and consider sharing the video with a family member or friend that you think might find it helpful or useful. Alrighty, folks, with that said, let's go ahead and dive on into things. Now, starting with satellite imagery, you can tell that we have a cold front here. It is not hard to find on our satellite loop. All of this kind of banding of moisture and thunderstorm activity in some places even. Moving up the eastern seaboard, all of this due to a big time trough that is beginning to work on through the lower 48 and becoming stronger as it does, beginning to tilt negatively, as we say in meteorology, just indicating that it is a strengthening system, a strengthening pocket of cold air working over the country, and very pretty mesmerizing look, and not hard to find on satellite by any means. Now, as for radar imagery, also not hard to find, and in fact, it lines up just about perfectly. Let's go ahead and kind of zoom into some areas starting into the northeast this morning, where we do have some pretty significant icing concerns through portions of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, even back down into portions of Massachusetts, and even into upstate New York. Now, the good news is this will fade throughout the day. The warm air will eventually take over whatever cold air is left at the surface, and we will just be left with a good old-fashioned cold rain. But we're going to have to get there before we don't have any problems. So if you are commuting up in this part of the country this morning, we mentioned it in yesterday's video, I'll tell you again today, be very careful, and if you don't have to commute, just don't. Ice is a lot more difficult to navigate than snow, and I know a lot of folks up here are used to the snow and used to the winter weather, but no matter how used to it you are, ice can definitely be a tricky travel situation. Now, outside of there, really all rain up and down the eastern seaboard, heavy rain into coastal New England, all the way down the I-95 corridor here into the southeast and into the mid-Atlantic as well, where we have even some feisty little thunderstorms this morning into portions of the Carolinas here through the PD up into the Sandhills of North Carolina. All of that will work east throughout the day. In fact, we could run a tornado threat in some of those areas this afternoon, and we will talk about that severe weather threat. Now, on the cold side of things, we do have a skinny band of snow setting up, and I did say this was a possibility. Now, not a lot of snow is falling, not a lot of snow is sticking here into Tennessee, but I think probably a higher chance that we're seeing that accumulating up into portions of eastern Kentucky, kind of just east of the Lexington and south of the Maysville area. Likely seeing some of that snow. So if you're in that area, definitely let me know if it's falling, if it's sticking. We'd love to hear those reports. And as we zoom on out, you can just see what a beast of a system this is, from the Gulf Coast all the way up into the maritime provinces of Canada. And then behind it, we even got some snow up here into the plains and into the Midwest, as that cold air moving through is producing enough lift, including lake effect, here into the state of Michigan. Now, watches, warnings, advisories, plenty of them out there. We'll start in the northeast once again. The purple colors, those are winter weather advisories for that freezing rain that is falling, causing problems. Those more Dijon colors, those are high wind warnings for much of Maine, all the way down through Boston, Providence, and into coastal Connecticut and Long Island. A very windy day in store for a lot of folks in that part of the country. And then flood watch is in effect here through much of Vermont, New Hampshire, and western Massachusetts, where a lot of rain is going to fall. Now, you're thinking, all right, well, why do we have all of this rainy stuff? Where's the snow at? Well, all the snow is to your west, out into Michigan and into the lake effect areas off of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, where we are going to see significant snowfall over the next couple of days from the UP through the western shores, where we have winter storm warnings and lake effect snow warnings in effect for Buffalo, all the way down into Erie and up into the Tug Hill, including Watertown and surrounding areas of that region. Now, zooming out even more and talking about more folks in the country, we've got wind advisories down into the Carolinas and Virginia for all of the wind we're going to be seeing. We've got Yeah, they have plenty of other, kind of wind warnings and wind advisories or special weather statements for that wind into the east central part of the country that we will definitely be monitoring, and even a couple winter weather advisories into the mountains of West Virginia down into North Carolina, Tennessee, and eastern Kentucky, where some of that snow is falling. And we'll begin to stick on some of those surfaces. So definitely watch out for that. Out west, a little bit more quiet out here, some winter weather in some of the higher terrains, but no major storm system currently ongoing at this moment in time. Now, for meteorology in minutes, let's go ahead and time this out a little bit and talk about the meteorology behind this storm. This is what things look like right now in the upper levels of the atmosphere with our relative vorticity. Now, this shows us where is their spin in the atmosphere, and it also kind of helps us to show where the storm systems are in general. And currently, a very neutrally tilted, kind of about as neutrally tilted of a trough as you can get, just meaning you can kind of see this almost cone shaped or almost a tornado shape in a way. This is our trough. This is our dipping down of cold air or elongation of lower pressures. And it's elongating in a kind of neutrally tilted way. It's not tilted this way. It's not tilted the other way. It's just kind of in this neutral orientation. But that is just the beginning. As we go throughout the day today, this will become negatively tilted, as we say. Notice how it kind of begins to tilt back here. That tells me we're getting even stronger cold air advection. The cold front is undergoing frontogenesis, just meaning it is strengthening and becoming stronger. And due to that, we also have a ton of diffluence aloft here over the mid-Atlantic and eastern seaboard. And that's creating a lot of lift at the surface. That's wringing out every ounce of precipitation the storm system can. And also increasing very strong winds as we are getting a pretty strong jet streak over this area as well. Now, all of that continues to work through the eastern seaboard through today, into tonight and into early tomorrow morning. By the time we're waking up Thursday morning, things are a lot more quiet, but you'll notice then at that point, the vorticity begins to move over the Great Lakes in this orientation. And that is going to really begin to crank up the lake effect snow system, lake effect snow potential rather, going into the latter part of this work week and into the weekend. Now, at the same time, another storm system beginning to work in out west, and we will discuss that in a moment. But before we do, let's go ahead and start talking about that severe weather potential. Now, this is a big area today. Not often that Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and the coast of Rhode Island and Long Island are under slight risk of severe weather, while portions of South Carolina also are. Just don't see that very often. But due to all of the wind energy with this storm system, we are going to run a very strong wind risk. And that's what really this outline is for. The strong straight line winds from Florida all the way up into coastal New England there, into southern New England, going to run that risk, and also a concern for a tornado threat today into the southeastern part of this. Now, from Kitty Hawk, Virginia Beach, down towards Jacksonville, North Carolina, Wilmington, much of eastern North Carolina, east of the I-95 corridor, going to be under the gun for a couple tornadoes. And I'll tell you, these are probably not going to be the pretty tornadoes you see in the plains. These are going to be rain wrapped. They're going to be a mess to try to see. So don't, expect to walk outside and stand on the front lawn and see a tornado if a tornado warning is issued. Go ahead and take shelter anywhere in this green and kind of brown area on your map. But really, the brown area is going to be the highest threat of an isolated tornado or two this afternoon. So definitely watching for that and that wind threat at the same time. All right, let's go ahead and time it out for you. Latest high-resolution rapid refresh model, fresh off the market, if you will. And you'll notice the overall setup this afternoon is quite simple. It's this squall line associated with our cold front. This is where the strongest straight line winds are going to be. This is where that tornado threat is going to be. And then even on the backside, some antifrontal precipitation even behind our front is moving on through at the same time. Now, again, like I said, watching this severe weather threat right into this region, and you'll notice that's where that squall line is going to move through during peak heating this afternoon. And even a couple little storms try to fire out in front of it, and that, those themselves could begin to rotate and produce that tornado threat. But this whole system just works on through all of that rain, all of that wind. By the time we get to about 4 p.m. tonight, what's left is not much in the western half of the southeast, but right along the coast, eastern North Carolina, eastern Virginia. That's where we do still have some of that rain and severe weather risk ongoing. And I'll also mention, you'll notice that little skinny band of snow kind of working on through this afternoon through portions of eastern Kentucky, southwestern Virginia, up into West Virginia. And then by the time we get to this evening, all that's left outside of some rain into the extreme coastal areas of North Carolina and into the Delmarva are a couple snow squalls here into Kentucky, Tennessee, and then even into southern Indiana and Ohio. And those will continue to work through during the evening and overnight hours. Those could bring some northwest flow snow to the mountains. But other than that, folks, then you get into Thursday afternoon and just going to be a cool, crisp day as that cold air settles on in. Now, let's move things north into the northeast. Also, very active weather here with the storm system. You folks are not going to be let off the hook by any means. And here we go. This is about starting about 10 a.m. this morning. Here we go. Here is some of that heavy rain that is working on through. Also noticing that squall line to the south, but really anywhere in that severe weather threat area I mentioned is going to run the risk. And then you notice we do have a little bit of a snowy side of this as well. Out on the cold side as that cold air is catching up to some moisture, bringing some snow to West Virginia, portions of Ohio, and even into extreme eastern Kentucky there. Now, we'll move this ahead into time, and luckily, I do think the icing threat will begin to subside up into the portions of New England that are seeing it this morning, this afternoon. That warm conveyor will take over. Warm air will kind of erode that cold air at the surface, and then it turns into a severe weather risk. Specifically right into this region, I think, from coastal New Jersey into Long Island up into southeastern New England. We've got a feisty squall line working into an area that is seeing a little bit of clearing and some destabilization. That is going to run the risk for a potent line of strong straight line winds and an embedded tornado, not out of the question either. And that works through this evening. New York City about 3 p.m. this afternoon, Boston by about 6 p.m. tonight. Very feisty conditions, and then we are seeing some of that change over from snow or from rain to snow into the higher elevations of New York State and surrounding areas, even into Vermont, Massachusetts, or at least western Massachusetts, and up into New Hampshire and portions of Maine overnight tonight. And it's after that, though, that lake effect becomes the primary kind of storyline here. Heavy snow into the Tug Hill, into Erie, Buffalo, surrounding areas, even some of those snow squalls breaking containment. And getting into portions of New England this afternoon through the Catskills into Vermont, New Hampshire, even western Massachusetts through Thursday afternoon could see a quick burst of a snow shower as the lake effect machine really cranks up into overdrive, and it continues overnight Thursday into Friday. Notice these lake effect bands ongoing in the usual trouble spots. Now, what about wind? That is another concern here with the storm system, and one that I don't want it to catch you off guard by any means. You definitely need to make sure you have Santa tied down, which hopefully you did yesterday because it might be a little late at this point. But gusty winds this afternoon into the Carolinas, Virginia. We're talking gusting up near 40, 50 at times, miles per hour that is, and continues during the evening as the front crosses through. Now, as we get later into this evening, I think winds die down a little bit, but continue to blast quite strong on the mountaintops of North Carolina and into the Virginias, especially those northwestern facing slopes where that frictional force is not helping you out. There's nothing to slow down the wind before it hits the top of a mountain. So definitely watching that area. Could see some power outages, would not surprise me. And that wind really begins to subside overnight tonight. I think by the time we get into Thursday afternoon, really just some breezy conditions left again in the mountainous regions of the mid-Atlantic. But for kind of the PD, or not even, well, yeah, the PD is South Carolina, but the Piedmont rather is what I was going for, into the foothills and into the coastal regions, a lot more quiet by tomorrow afternoon. Really just have to get on through today. Northeast, I think the wind's going to be even stronger here for some folks. Already feeling the breeze here into New Jersey, Long Island, coastal Connecticut, Rhode Island, and into southern Massachusetts. And that's going to continue this afternoon, right as this squall line is beginning to move through. Notice some of these wind gusts. We're gusting up near 60, 70 miles an hour at times into the coastal areas of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts. This will likely cause power outages. This is going to bring some trees down, bring some power lines down. And really just, not a fun way to spend your Wednesday probably, as that wind is absolutely whipping. You can very clearly see where that squall line is. On the kind of one side, winds are absolutely ripping as that low-level jet kind of gets its winds mixed down to the surface. And then on the cooler side, things begin to calm down a little bit, but still breezy nonetheless. That swings on through overnight tonight, though. Everybody getting in on that strong winds into New England, specifically into eastern New England. And then tomorrow afternoon, a breezy day for sure, but not nearly as bad probably as what you're going to see today. as that squall line works on through. All right, let's zoom things out here a little bit and talk about these snow bands, this lake effect snow, and talk snowfall totals here. This is this afternoon. There's a storm system working on out of here. You'll notice overnight tonight, though, very strong lake effect snow in all of the usual trouble spots: northern UP of Michigan, western shores of Michigan, even into portions of Ontario getting in on that heavy snow, and then back down into Appalachia as well. Could see some northwest flows, some snow squalls, like I mentioned, into the Ohio and Tennessee Valley. Definitely going to be a possibility, and all of that continues into Thursday afternoon. Very defined lake effect bands, I think, and you'll also notice some little shortwave here, maybe bringing some precipitation back towards Missouri, Iowa, and Illinois, at least on the NAM model here. We'll see if that pans out. But the big theme just going to be continuing lake effect snow through Thursday afternoon. And then I think calming down a little bit by the time we get into Friday, and you'll notice our next storm system beginning to kind of ramp up a little bit. But how much snow can you expect over the next 3 days or so out of this? Like I mentioned, I think a pretty heavy dosing in those normal lake effect areas. The UP of Michigan, I think plenty of people are going to see more than a foot of snow. Same thing for the western shores of Michigan, half a foot to a foot of snow, likely plus in some places into Ontario. Like I mentioned, a pretty good kind of area of snow here as well, a foot plus. And I know you don't use the imperial system, but convert that to whatever you would like. Definitely going to see a lot of snow, though, is the main point. And then into the Tug Hill, going to be a big winter, and then just south of Buffalo as well, where a foot, 2 feet plus of snow is going to very much be possible in plenty of these areas. I will also mention, you will note kind of the band of snow here from West Virginia up into Pennsylvania and up into upstate New York. That is from this kind of skinny area of snow that is working through with the front itself this afternoon. So we will get some snow out of that, and then some snow squalls tomorrow, and kind of in surrounding time frames from tomorrow really into, we'll even say Friday. It could work into portions of Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, maybe even into Ohio. That could bring some snow of its own. Not a lot, though, and it'll be very hit or miss depending on your exact location. All right, what's after this storm? And I'll tell you, I think there's a little bit of buzz beginning to go around about that time frame right before Christmas. Will it produce a big winter storm? If so, who will see it? And I'll tell you right now, there's a lot less that we know than we do know. The models are all over the place, I guess is kind of what I'm trying to say here. But before we even get there, we do have a couple other storms to kind of monitor. This is let me refresh the page first of all, so it wants to work properly for us. But let's go ahead and start this Thursday afternoon. So tomorrow afternoon, another storm system beginning to work out west into the Pacific. This will kind of cross the country and bring its own impactful weather. You'll notice all that energy crossing the Rockies. This is Friday afternoon. And then by the time we get into Saturday, a pretty good little low pressure system here, likely bringing some sort of precipitation into the Midwest. That could be snow, that could be rain. We'll take a look at it in a second. So that'll be the weekend weather maker. That kind of works on through, also bringing some rain likely to the East Coast. And then behind it, another storm system, a very similar path, kind of does the same thing about a week or so from now into early next week. And then it's after that, it's this time frame right here, about 10 days from now, things get interesting. So we've got 2 storm systems in the next 7-8 days, we'll say. And then after that, that's when the one that you're probably a little more intrigued about is likely to kind of show its face. And we'll talk about it more in depth in a second. But before we do, let's break down these first 2 little storm systems really quickly. What you're seeing on the map there, that's what's happening right now. That's our big old mess. Here comes the next storm. You can already see it bringing impacts out west as early as tomorrow, gets into the Rockies, dries up a little bit, then taps into that Gulf moisture. And by the weekend, this is Saturday morning, we've got rain, even ice and snow into portions of the Midwest. We've got snow in Wisconsin, and then it looks like a pretty rainy system for most folks as we kind of get into this little bit of a warmer pattern that we've been talking about. Now, before we get there, we are going to have a very cold next couple of days as the cold air from our current cold front settles in. But after that, by the time the next storm arrives, it does look to be a little bit more wet than cold, we'll say. And then you get that second storm system after it. Again, it looks similar, looks wet for a lot of folks, but definitely some snow here into portions of maybe Wisconsin, up into Minnesota, potentially Michigan. That storm looks to actually bomb out pretty good and could be a pretty impactful one about a week from now into the Great Lakes. And then after that, here comes the next storm system on the GFS. You'll notice much further south, We've got snow into the Ohio Valley. We've got kind of a mixed bag south of there. We've even got snow into the mountains of North Carolina, heavy snow that is, and not far from seeing snow into upstate South Carolina almost. As it's kind of this cut off, low, messy little storm system that kind of dives on through and then tries to ride up the coast and become a bit of a nor'easter. And then, that entire time period, another little storm tries to do some craziness well out there into time. What about the European, though? Does it kind of agree with the GFS? Well, in the near term, yeah, here's the next storm. Like I said, kind of wet, icy, or snowy, depending on where you're at. We'll talk about way more in depth tomorrow after our current storm system is out of here. But that's the first storm. Could even bring some snow or ice to Appalachia due to some cold air damming. And then the next storm about a week from now, that's storm number 2 here. You'll notice actually a pretty potent little winter storm, it looks like, for somebody in the Midwest. And again, we'll break it down more as we get closer. But the time period that I'm watching for some mischief, again, right in here, about 10 days from now, you'll notice we've got southern energy and northern energy. And that is such a key that we have not been able to line up so far this winter. And if we can do it, I think we could get a potent winter storm somewhere outside of the Great Lakes, that is, and outside of the interior Northeast. That could be the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, the Mid-Atlantic. It could be really anywhere at this point. Everyone is still in the game. But nonetheless, the pieces are there for something exciting. And you'll notice the European does that, kind of merges these two together and then brings a big block of cold air and a storm just a couple of days before Christmas. And then even after that, continues kind of the mischief of some wintry nonsense, if you will. So let's take a look at some ensembles. What are the chances of snow from the first 2 storm systems? We'll start with the GFS. Here's the lake effect snow signal. You'll see all that going on right now. Here's the next little snow signal. You'll see that little band. Highest chance is probably going to be in Wisconsin for snow this weekend. After that, the next snow signal kind of into the early and middle part of next week. About a week from now, you'll notice a signal out into the Midwest once again for snow. And then after that, that's when the 10-day time frame shows up, and you'll notice a small signal, not a big one, but a small signal for maybe Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, into the Ohio Valley, and up into the Northeast. That's just the GFS ensembles. The European ensembles, well, let's see, actually, do I have the European ensembles pulled up here? Sorry, you're going to see a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff. Here it is. I don't know why it was all the way over there, but we will drag it back to where it's supposed to be. All right, European ensembles. Here is the weekend storm. Like I said, a bit of a bigger signal this weekend into Minnesota, Wisconsin than the GFS has, but either way, you'll get the idea on who has the best chance there. That's storm number 1. Storm number 2 next week, kind of the same general area, a little more defined on, again, Minnesota, Wisconsin than the GFS was. So you're already seeing model disagreement only a week from now, let alone 10 days from now. And then we get to that 10-day time frame, and similar to the GFS, here's that region, potentially the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, maybe the Mid-Atlantic up into the Northeast. That's that right before Christmas snow potential that we're going to be watching and talking about through the coming 10 days or so as we get a little bit closer into time. So definitely a signal there, nothing crazy. It's not showing a foot of snow. Not every ensemble member agrees, but it's worth noting at this time frame. Another thing worth noting is the ensemble height anomaly map. This kind of shows us where we could expect storminess. Here's that first little storm this weekend. But notice the overall trend. We've got these little pieces of energy working on through, but that's working under just a giant ridge of warmer temperatures that is returning to the eastern half of the country. It'll be a pretty potent warm up for a lot of folks, I think, into next week. And that's why most of these little storm systems are going to be mainly rain. That's storm number 1. Here's storm number 2, like I mentioned, around next Tuesday, Wednesday. Again, trapped under this ridge, so it's going to be relatively warm, not have a lot of cold air to work with. But we get towards that 10-day time frame, and here we go. Look at what happens. A supply of cold air to the north and a storm signal to the south. And that's what you want to see for some sort of winter storm outside of the Great Lakes or outside of the interior Northeast. Now, will this line up for something big? I mean, honestly, your guess is as good as mine. Anybody's guess is as good as mine. But I do see a change back to more favorable ingredients right before Christmas. And that's when you want it if you're a winter weather fan, isn't it? That's kind of the dream for probably many folks here. GFS ensembles, same general idea here. Again, storm number 1, trapped under a ridge. Storm number 2 there, kind of trapped under a ridge. And then we get further out into time, and here we go. Not quite as impressive as the European ensembles, but a southern tracking storm system and very close to that cold air supplying it. Not quite, again, as impressive as the European ensembles, but you get the idea. A more favorable look in that time frame than the time frame before it. All right, another thing I'll show you, this is the European AI model, and this is the first thing that kind of latched onto this idea of a storm system in this time frame. And boy, oh boy, does it have a storm system. Let's kind of refresh it. Now, the AI model does not show us precipitation on the map or anything. It just kind of shows general atmospheric dynamics and things like that. So we're just going to have to use the same map we just used to get the general idea of where is there cold and stormy weather. Now, that's what we're seeing right now. Here's the first storm this weekend. Again, like I said, kind of agreeing with all the other models, just a little signal trapped under this ridge, meaning mainly a warm system, not a lot of cold air to work with. Now, with that said, like I said, I do think some snow in Wisconsin, maybe Minnesota, the UP of Michigan, maybe even some ice as well will be a possibility. That gets on through. Here comes that next little piece of energy. Again, riding pretty far north, trapped under this ridge. That one, like I said, though, some of the models do indicate could get a little strong, maybe bring a winter storm for somebody in the Midwest or Great Lakes. But it's after that, about 10 days from now, here comes that big dipping piece of energy. And it's kind of two pieces. Here's the first piece. Here's some northern stream energy. Here's some southern stream energy. And this is when you should get excited if you're a winter weather fan. Notice what happens is another piece of northern energy comes down and scoops up that southern energy. And this is about as good as it gets. This is the 22nd of December. So, you know, it's out there for sure in time, but beautiful storm signal into the southeast, cold air not far from it, and could potentially make some magic happen. Now, I will go ahead and reiterate. I'm not saying we're going to get a huge winter southern storm. I'm not saying we're going to get a huge nor'easter. What I am saying is the ingredients are in and around the place you need them to be at this time frame. And that's what this channel is all about. It's telling you when the ingredients are there. And then as we get closer to time, I'll tell you, are they lining up? Are they separating? What's it look like? And right now, we're just in the very beginning. The ingredients are there phase of things. Now, I'll show you the European vorticity map, kind of just to give you one final look at things. And kind of give you that idea. Like I said, here's the first storm system. We talked about that. Here's the second storm system. Talked about that. Third storm system. I think we already talked about this as well. But you get the idea of what is there. We've got northern stream energy. We've got southern stream energy, and how they interact and where they interact. That'll be the big question on who and even if we get a big snowstorm right before Christmas. But like I said, we're in the ingredients are there time frame, and sure enough, there they are. There's the two pieces of energy you want to see that could work together. And then obviously here in the European, you get this big kind of bowling ball low pressure that works through the eastern half of the country. All right, well, I kind of showed that map too already, so I don't know why I had everything out of order today, but I will go back and pretend I didn't even load that up. So that's all I got for you on this Wednesday. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Again, fingers crossed for some sort of big time snow in the east right before Christmas. I know obviously travel impacts and all would be a concern, but I think a lot of folks would probably enjoy a white Christmas, at least most of my viewers and myself included. All right, folks, have a great rest of your day. Please do stay safe out there, stay weather aware with our current storm system, and I will see you all tomorrow.